The stars outside the shuttle window moved slowly as Mira approached Raisin 5, the home planet of the Varkario powerful and feared alien race. The sky was a deep blue with two suns glowing on the horizon. Her fingers tapped the armrest. Quietly, not from fear, but focused. Mira was Earth's youngest peace ambassador, trained in strategy, history, and alien languages. She had been chosen not because of strength or power, but because she understood how to listen and how to think fast. The Varkari were known as warriors. They did not believe in peace, only in honor and strength. For over 20 years, humans and Varkari had fought small wars, border skirmishes, and trade disputes. But now, after a mysterious signal from Varkari space, Earth saw a rare chance for peace. And they had sent Mira. The shuttle landed with a softness on a wide landing pad, made of dark stone. Alien guards waited in tall armor, holding long weapons with curved ends. They said nothing as Mira stepped out, her boots clicking softly on the stone. She wore a simple black suit, the symbol of Earth's Unity Council on her chest, a Varkari. Soldier stepped forward. He was tall, covered in thick armor that pulsed with blue light. His eyes were yellow and sharp. "You will follow," he said in a low, strong voice. Mira nodded. She was led through wide halls filled with carvings of Varkari battles. The walls told stories of ancient wars, of victories and losses. Every face carved in stone looked proud even in death. They reached a great door, 10 meters high. 2 guards stood on each side. The soldier spoke again. "She is inside. Do not lie. Do not show weakness. If you fail, you do not leave." The doors opened. Inside, the room was dark except for one large flame burning in the center. The walls were curved, and every sound echoed. At the far end stood Jeddah, the leader of the Varkari. She was unlike any being Mira had ever seen. Jeddah stood over 7 feet tall. Her skin was dark gray, and armor shaped like bone covered her shoulders and chest. Her hair was tied in thick braids down her back. Her eyes glowed faintly green in the firelight. Watching Mira with a mix of boredom and curiosity, Mira stepped forward calmly. "I am Mira, representative of the Earth Unity Council," she said, her voice clear. Jeddah didn't speak. She walked forward slowly, her footsteps heavy and deliberate. She stopped in front of Mira, towering above her. "You are small," Jeddah said. Her voice was deep and sharp, like metal scraping stone. "They send a child to talk peace?" Mira did not respond to the insult. She simply said, "I'm here because peace matters." Jeddah narrowed her eyes. She leaned closer. "You have never seen battle. You do not know what loss tastes like." "I know what war costs," Mira said quietly, "and I know what it takes to stop one." Jeddah stared for a long moment. Then, without warning, she reached out and grabbed Mira by the neck. Not hard. Enough to choke, but enough to show her strength. Her claws pressed gently, just enough to remind Mira who held power. Mira did not move. Jeddah leaned even closer. Her breath was warm, her eyes glowing brighter now. "I could rip you apart, human," she hissed, "but tonight, you will listen." The room was silent. Then Jeddah let go and stepped back. Mira didn't touch her neck or move an inch. She kept her eyes on Jeddah. The Varkari leader gave a small, cold smile. "Good. You are not as soft as you look." Mira allowed herself a small breath. "I came to offer a new way forward, not as a weakness, as a choice." Jeddah turned away, walking back to her seat, which was carved from stone and shaped like the back of a great beast. "You will stay for 3 days. Speak only when asked. You may learn something, or you may not live long enough." Mira gave a slight nod. "Understood." The guards returned and led her to a small chamber. It had no windows, no comforts, only a flat stone bed and a table with 1 chair. A bowl of thick red soup was placed in front of her. She sat in silence. Outside, the alien winds howled across the mountains of Raisin 5. Mira stared at the fire bowl in her room. This was only the beginning. But she had passed the first test. The Varkari didn't respect titles. They didn't respect words. They respected courage, and Mira had shown hers. The night on Raisin 5 was colder than Mira expected. Even with the heavy air and the strong winds, she felt calm. She sat alone in her stone room, thinking about her meeting with Jedha. The memory of Jedha's hand on her neck was still fresh. The alien leader had shown power, but she had also shown something else, interest. Mira knew that meant she had a chance. The next morning, the door opened. A different guard stood there, taller than the one from before. His armor had red markings, and his face showed no emotion. "Come, she waits," he said. Mira stood without a word and followed him through the winding halls of the Varkari fortress. The walls seemed older today, or maybe just heavier. Every corner told her this place had seen war for centuries, but something in the air felt different, like the silence before a storm. She was taken to a new chamber, larger than the last. There was no fire, no guards, only Jedha, standing beside a tall stone table covered in holographic maps. The maps showed stars, planets, and fleets. "Enter," Jedha said. Not looking up, Mira walked in slowly. "You called for me?" "I did." Jedha pressed a control on her wrist, and the maps faded. She turned around, arms crossed. "You say humans want peace, but peace is a tool for the weak. Do you agree?" Mira shook her head. "No, peace is a goal of the strong. Only the brave choose peace when they could choose war." Jedha tilted her head. "Interesting answer. But words are like wind. They pass quickly." "Then let my actions prove it," Mira said. Jedha smiled slightly. "That is why you are here. You must pass the trial of proof." Mira felt her heart skip, just once. The trial was something she had read about in the old records. It was a test of courage used by the Varkari to measure worth. Few had taken it, none from Earth had survived. But she did not hesitate. "I accept," Mira said calmly. Jedha stepped forward. "You do not know what the trial is. I don't need to know. If I wait for perfect answers, I miss the chance to act." Jedha's smile grew wider. "Good, come with me." They walked down into the lower levels of the fortress. The path was narrow, carved deep into the rock. Strange glowing vines clung to the walls, lighting the way in green-blue colors. They reached a heavy door. Two guards opened it with long metal staffs. Inside was a wide chamber, filled with stone pillars and dark corners. At the center stood a cage. Inside the cage was a creature. It had 4 legs, silver fur, and glowing red eyes. Its breath came in quick bursts. Sharp claws scratched the floor. Mira studied it carefully. "This is a Growlithe," Jedha said. "It was trained to hunt. If you run, it will chase. If you attack, it will strike faster. If you show fear, it will feel it." Mira looked at Jedha. "And what must I do?" "You must survive 5 minutes and return to me without harm." The cage opened. Mira stepped inside. The door closed behind her. The creature stood still for a moment. Then it growled a deep, strange sound. Mira did not move. She slowed her breathing and kept her hands by her side. "I'm not your enemy," she whispered. The Growlithe tilted its head. It took 1 step forward, then another. Mira noticed its legs were stronger on the front side. It would leap, not charge. She knelt slowly, lowering herself. The creature came closer. She reached into her pocket carefully and pulled out a small light device. She pressed the side, and a soft blue glow appeared. It was harmless, but it flickered like a soft flame. The Growlithe stopped. It watched the light. Mira rolled the device gently across the floor. The creature followed it. It sniffed, nudged it, then sat down. She stayed still. Minutes passed. The guards outside watched in silence. Even Jedha showed a flicker of surprise. Mira stood up slowly and walked toward the door. The Growlithe did not chase her. She knocked once on the stone. The door opened. Jedha stood with her arms crossed. "You did not fight. You did not run." "No," Mira said. "I understood." Jedha looked at her, expression unreadable. "You may return to your room." As Mira walked away, one of the guards whispered something in Varkari language. Jedha replied quietly, "She may be small, but she is not simple." Back in her chamber, Mira sat on the edge of the stone bed. She had passed the trial, not with strength, not with weapons, but with calm thinking and respect for life. That night, for the first time since her arrival, a small plate of fruits was placed beside her meal, a quiet sign of honor. The sun rose slowly over Raisin 5, casting long shadows across the rocky land. The Varkari fortress stood strong against the wind, and deep inside it, Mira prepared for what came next. After passing the trial of proof, she was no longer seen as a weak outsider. Some of the Varkari guards now looked at her with silent respect. They still said nothing, but their eyes had changed. That was enough for Mira. The heavy door opened once again. A short guard with blue armor stood waiting. The High Leader calls. You? Mira nodded and followed him through the hallways. This time, the path led not to the war room or the lower chambers, but to a training arena. It was wide, open to the sky, and surrounded by large rocks and statues of old warriors. Jeddah stood at the center of the arena, waiting. Several Varkari soldiers stood around the edges. Watching silently, Mira stepped forward. You sent for me? Jeddah gave a small nod. You passed the trial. Now you face something greater. Mira tilted her head slightly. Another test? Not just a test, Jeddah replied. A challenge. A way to earn true voice in our council. What do I have to do? Jeddah pointed to the far side of the arena, where a tall gate stood. Inside that gate is the Chamber of Pathways. It is a maze. Many have entered it, few return. You must reach the center before sunset. If you do, you will be seen not as a visitor, but as an equal. Mira thought for a moment. And if I fail? Jeddah's voice was calm. Then you will never speak to our council again. The wind blew dust across the arena. Mira felt its chill, but her mind was clear. I accept, she said. Jeddah stepped aside and motioned to the guards. The gate opened with a deep grinding sound. Mira took a breath, then stepped inside. The Chamber of Pathways was not made of stone like the rest of the fortress. It was alive. The walls were made of moving panels. Some glowed. Some pulsed like veins. The ground changed with each turn, sometimes smooth, sometimes cracked, sometimes soft like sand. Mira walked carefully. She did not rush. Each turn was different. Some led to dead ends. Others led her back to the same place. The walls whispered strange sounds, as if the maze was studying her. Mira marked her path using a tiny metal pin drop every 10 steps. She used her ears and her memory to track which turns brought her forward, and which brought her in circles. At one point, a door opened, and sharp gas filled the air. Mira dropped flat on the ground, covering her mouth with a cloth. The gas floated upward, light and deadly. She waited until it passed, then moved on. The maze was not only physical. It tested the mind. A room of mirrors showed Mira dozens of reflections. Each one moved slightly differently. Only one reflection matched her exactly. She stepped toward that one, and a hidden door opened. She smiled. Nice trick. Outside, Jeddah watched the sun rise higher in the sky. She stood without moving, arms crossed. A young Varkari soldier walked up beside her. She is still inside, yes. She is clever. But cleverness is not always enough. Jeddah didn't answer. She was thinking about what Mira said days ago. Only the brave choose peace when they could choose war. No Varkari had ever said such a thing. Back inside, Mira reached a wide chamber with glowing symbols on the wall. She pressed her hand to one. Nothing happened. Then she remembered the growl of the creature she had calmed during the trial. She pulled out the same light device and placed it near the wall. The symbol glowed brighter. A door opened slowly. She was getting close. But the final hallway was not empty. A Varkari soldier in dark armor stood in her path. He was not part of the challenge. He was not expected. You should not be here, he growled. Mira paused. Why? The High Leader should not trust your kind. You are soft, weak. This trial is a waste. Mira stepped forward. Then let me prove you wrong. The soldier reached for his weapon, but Mira did not move. She simply looked into his eyes. I didn't come to fight. I came to understand. The soldier hesitated. Something in her voice stopped him. He stepped aside. Then go. But you will not last long. Mira walked past him without a word. The final chamber was round, quiet, and filled with carvings of past Varkari leaders. In the center was a small stone with a single glowing symbol. Unity. She touched it. The walls hummed. A deep voice spoke through the room. It was not Jeddah. It was the voice of the maze itself. The path is not only found, it is earned. The gate at the far end opened. Mira stepped into the sunlight. Jeddah stood waiting. The other Varkari turned to see. Mira walked toward her, dust on her face, scratches on her clothes, but her eyes steady. I reached the center, she said. Jeddah gave a slow nod. You did. The soldiers watched in silence. You may now speak before the council. Jeddah said, you are no longer just a guest. You are a challenger, and challengers are heard. Mira gave a small bow. Then let's begin the real work. Jeddah's lips curved into a small smile. Perhaps, just perhaps, this human was more than they expected. For the first time since she had arrived on Raisin 5, Mira was allowed to walk freely in the Varkari fortress, no guard beside her, no locked door behind her. It was a small sign, but an important one. Her success in the Chamber of Pathways had not gone unnoticed. Varkari warriors now watched her with a mix of curiosity and caution. Some nodded slightly when they passed her. Others simply stared. But the air had changed. There was respect in it now. Mira explored the stone corridors slowly. She touched the walls and studied the ancient carvings. Every image told stories of battles, leaders, and honor. For generations, the Varkari had grown through war, pain, and pride. And now Mira had come. Speaking of peace. It was a hard path, but one she would not leave. Later that day, Jeddah met her in the High Garden, a quiet open space near the heart of the fortress. There were no flowers here, only strange glowing plants and vines that curled around smooth black stones. A soft wind blew across the space, carrying the smell of metal and earth. Jeddah stood by a tall sculpture, arms folded. Mira approached slowly. You walk like one of us now, Jeddah said. Mira stopped beside her. I watch. I learn. Jeddah gave a small nod. That is a good trait. Most outsiders speak too much and understand too little. Mira smiled gently. Speaking is easy. Listening takes effort. For a while, they stood in silence. Then Jeddah said, the council will meet in 2 days. They will hear your offer, but they will not trust it. I expected that, Mira replied. Change is slow. Jeddah looked at her. You speak of peace, but do you know how fragile it is? One mistake, one attack, and the old path returns. Yes, Mira said quietly. That's why it's worth the risk. That night, Mira was invited to the circle of fire, an old Varkari tradition. Warriors sat around a wide fire pit, telling stories of old battles, family trials, and personal growth. No lies were allowed here, only truth. Jeddah sat at the center, and Mira was given a place beside her. That alone shocked many. One by one, the warriors spoke. Stories of bravery, of brothers lost in battle, of hunts that nearly ended in death. Then Jeddah looked at Mira. Speak. Mira stood. She looked at the flame, then at the warriors. I come from a world that once destroyed itself. Long ago, we fought each other over land, pride, and fear. We forgot we were one people. When the skies burned and the seas rose, we remembered too late. She paused, but we rebuilt, not stronger in weapons, but in hope. That is why I am here. Silence followed her words. The fire crackled. No one clapped. Varkari did not clap, but no one spoke against her either. That was enough. The next morning, a sharp alarm rang through the halls. Red lights flashed. Mira stepped into the corridor and saw guards rushing by. She caught one by the arm. What happened? Attack, the guard growled. One of your human bases. Eastern Cliffside. Mira's heart sank. She ran to the command hall, where Jeddah stood before a glowing map. A small red mark blinked. On the edge of Varkari territory, Jeddah looked at Mira. Your people are under attack. A rogue Varkari group crossed the lines. The council believes you brought weakness here. Mira stepped forward. Let me go to them. Jeddah frowned. They may not trust you now. They will trust you, Mira said. Come with me. Jeddah stared at her for a long moment. Then she spoke sharply to a guard. prepare to riders. We leave at once. The journey to the human base took 3 hours on high-speed hover bikes. The land below rushed by black hills, sharp rocks, and red grass that danced in the wind. Smoke rose in the distance. When they arrived, they found the base half damaged. Walls scorched by plasma. Human soldiers stood with weapons ready. Behind them, injured lay on stretchers. One soldier raised his gun when he saw the Varkari approach. Mira raised her hands. "Hold your fire. She's with me." Jetta stood tall, armor shining, eyes calm. The soldier hesitated. "Who is she?" "She's the one who protected me," Mira said. "And she didn't come to fight. She came to stop this, the human." Leader, a woman named Colonel Rena, stepped forward. "You trust her." "With my life." Rena looked at Jetta. "Then speak." Jetta looked around. "Those who attack this place do not speak for me or for my council. They will be punished, but if you strike back now, everything will fall apart." The soldiers listened. Jetta added, "This base will be repaired. I will give you Varkari metal to fix it, and I will leave 2 of my guards here, not to control you but to protect you." Rena slowly lowered her weapon. "Then maybe this peace isn't just words." Mira smiled. "Maybe it's a beginning." As they returned to the fortress, Jetta rode in silence. Finally, she said, "You risked much today." "So did you?" Mira replied. Jetta looked ahead. "Perhaps that is the way forward. Not just peace, but shared risk." Mira nodded. "That's how trust is built." And for the first time, the wind over Raisin 5 felt warm. The stars above Raisin 5 were sharp and bright, but something darker moved beneath their light. The fortress was quiet, its walls strong as ever, but inside, unseen cracks had started to form. Mira stood on one of the high balconies, looking over the rocky valley below. The air was cool, and the wind carried a distant sound like metal scraping stone. She had grown used to the strange sounds of this world. She had also grown used to walking the halls without fear. Her mission was finally working. The humans had begun small repairs to the base that was attacked. Jetta had made a rare promise before her council to protect the peace effort. Some council members had even started asking Mira questions instead of ignoring her. But peace is never safe for long. That evening, Mira was called again to Jetta's war chamber. The large table glowed with new symbols. Something had changed. Jetta stood with her arms folded. "Jaw tight, 2 of our ships were attacked," she said coldly, "near the border." Mira stepped forward. "Who did it?" Jetta pointed to the image of a Varkari warship. "This was not from your people. It was one of ours. But it had no clear markings, no leader, just action." "A rogue faction?" Mira asked. Jetta nodded. "Yes, we suspected before, but now it is certain. They are trying to destroy the talks. They believe peace makes us weak." Mira's voice was calm. "Then we must prove them wrong." But Jetta didn't speak right away. Her eyes were sharper than before. "You do not understand how deep this runs," she finally said. "These are not just angry warriors. Some of them sit in our council, hidden, silent. And if they strike again, even I may not protect you." Mira stepped closer. "Then let me help you stop them." Jetta's voice dropped to a whisper. "I have a plan, but it is dangerous." That night, Mira followed Jetta down into the shadow vault, a secret part of the fortress where few had ever gone. The walls were covered in dark stone and old Varkari symbols. Hidden guards watched them from behind doors. Inside the vault was a wide table covered in scrolls, maps, and coded messages. These were taken from captured messengers. Jetta explained. "They show plans for another attack. This time, it will be your Earth ambassador ship, Mira froze. But that ship is set to arrive in 2 days. It carries peace documents and a new treaty agreement." Jetta looked at her. "That is why they chose it." Mira clenched her fists. "We have to stop them. There is one way," Jetta said slowly, "but it must be done in secret." The plan was simple but risky. Jetta would pretend to delay the peace talks. Mira would act like she was returning to her people in anger. But secretly, both of them would travel to the Silent Range, a place between Varkari and human space where the rogue group had set up a hidden launch base there. They would gather proof of the planned attack. If they survived. The next morning, the fortress was filled with tension. Mira walked through the halls with her bag packed, acting as if she was leaving for good. Some Varkari guards looked pleased. Others looked unsure. Jeddah stood before the council, announcing that peace would be paused. Mira left through the west gate at sunrise. Jeddah followed later with 2 loyal guards, riding quiet transport bikes through hidden paths in the mountains. By nightfall, they reached the silent range. The air was colder here. The land was jagged and sharp, with old battle wreckage scattered across the ground. Long ago, this place had seen terrible war. Now it might hold the key to saving peace. Jeddah scanned the area. Their signal comes from that ridge. Mira looked up. A soft light blinked behind a broken cliff wall. They moved quietly, using the rocks for cover. Jeddah's guards stayed behind, watching the edges. As they reached the ridge, they saw a hidden camp, guarded by Varkari soldiers in black armor, with no symbols. At the center was a ship, clearly made for speed and attack, and in one of the tents, Mira saw it, a copy of the peace agreement, the same one meant to be signed in 2 days. Her heart beat faster. They planned to destroy the real treaty and blame humans. Jeddah's voice was low. Yes, then use that anger to start full war. They quickly took images of the documents, the ship design, and the hidden weapons. But just as they turned to leave, a rock slipped under Mira's boot. The sound was small but loud enough. A shout came from behind. Who goes there? Jeddah grabbed Mira's arm. Run. They sprinted down the rocks as energy bolts flew past them. Jeddah blocked one with her armor, the other missing Mira by inches. The guards at the bottom fired back to cover them. One bolt hit a rogue soldier. The others scattered for cover. Jeddah and Mira jumped onto the bikes and raced down the trail. As they moved through the dark, Mira yelled, "We have the proof." Jeddah smiled through the wind. "Now let's make them hear it." By morning, they returned to the fortress. Mira handed the data to a trusted council elder, along with the stolen documents. Within hours, the evidence was shown to the full Varkari council. Faces turned pale. Voices rose in anger, not at the humans, but at the traitors among them. Jeddah stood tall. "You wanted strength. This is strength, facing truth and protecting peace." Mira stepped beside her. "Now you see why peace is not weakness. It is the hardest path, but it's the only one worth walking." Silence filled the room. Then the oldest council member rose. "We vote at sunrise," he said. That night, Jeddah met Mira in the high garden again. She looked at her with calm pride. "You faced death for a people not your own." Mira looked back. "So did you?" Jeddah stepped closer, her voice low. "You make me question everything I was taught." Mira smiled gently. "Then I've done my job." And for the first time, Jeddah laughed softly. It was the sound of change. The Varkari fortress was still before dawn. A soft wind moved through the stone halls like a whisper. But inside the council chamber, tension was thick. All 12 council members sat in their tall stone chairs, faces firm, eyes sharp. In the center stood Jeddah and Mira, side by side. On the long table before them lay the stolen data from the rogue base, the ship plans, the fake treaty, and messages proving a secret plan to destroy peace. The council elder stood slowly. "We have reviewed the evidence. It is real," another member added. "The rogue fighters acted against our code. They tried to bring shame to our people." But one younger counselor shook his head. "And still we allowed a human into our home. Maybe that was the mistake." Mira stepped forward. "If trusting me was a mistake, then I have already paid the price," she said. "I have risked my life once on your land, not for power, not for reward, but because I believe peace is still possible." Jeddah raised her voice. "She speaks truth, and I now believe what I once doubted. Honor is not only found in war, it can be found in those who try to prevent it." The chamber was silent. Then the eldest counselor spoke again. "We vote now. Let it be known." One by one, each counselor stood and spoke either for peace or against it. Mira held her breath. For peace, against, for peace, against, for peace. And so it continued. until the vote was clear. 9 for peace, 3 against. The council elder turned to Mira. You have earned what no human ever has, a seat at the circle of speakers. Mira bowed her head. Thank you. Jetta nodded with pride. But just as the council began to close the meeting, a guard burst into the room. High Leader. Urgent message from the outer post. Jetta turned. Speak. The guard was breathless. The Earth Ambassador's ship has arrived early, and it was attacked. Mira's heart froze. Attacked? By whom? We don't know, the guard replied. A false signal drew them into a trap. A small fighter group hit them near orbit. The damage is heavy. The ship is falling fast. Jetta stepped forward quickly. Do we have a rescue team ready? Already preparing? High Leader? Mira looked at her. I need to go with them. Jetta's eyes narrowed. No, you have done enough. No, Mira said firmly. They're my people. They followed me here because I asked them to. I won't leave them now. Jetta stared at her for a long moment. Then she gave a small nod. Then we both go. Within minutes, the rescue ship launched from the upper docks. It was fast and shaped like a spear, with dark metal and glowing blue engines. Mira and Jetta stood side by side on the command deck, along with 4 trained Varkari pilots. Through the windows, the Earth Ambassador ship could be seen falling through the upper clouds. Its sides were scorched. Sparks flew from its lower hull. The stabilizers are gone, one pilot reported. They'll crash in less than 5 minutes. Lock onto their signal, Jetta ordered. Open voice channel. A weak voice came through. This is Ambassador Luan, hull damage. 2 engines gone, requesting emergency assist. This is Jetta, High Leader of the Varkari. She replied calmly, we are on our way. Hold on. Mira stepped to the comms. Luan, it's me, Mira. We're coming. Just stay with us. There was a pause. Mira, you made them listen, the ambassador said weakly. I knew you would. As they neared the falling ship, Jetta gave quick orders. Send the cables, prepare pull clamps, focus shields forward. The ship shook as they entered the thicker part of the atmosphere. The human ship was spinning now. A fire trailed behind it like a comet. The rescue ship dropped lower and lower, pressing against gravity and wind. Lock on now. Too thick. Cables fired out and clamped onto the Earth ship. A jolt shook both vessels. Reverse thrust. Pull them up slowly. The strain was heavy. Metal creaked. Alarms beeped. Mira gripped the edge of the console. Come on, come on. With one final push, the rescue ship steadied. The Earth Ambassador ship stopped falling and began to rise. Cheers broke out on the bridge. Jetta gave a small sigh of relief. They're safe. They brought the damaged Earth ship down in a safe zone near the Varkari fortress. Medical teams rushed in. Mira ran to help as doors opened and Earth officials stepped out, coughing and bruised but alive. Ambassador Luan was helped out by 2 crew members. He saw Mira and smiled faintly. You weren't wrong about them, Mira smiled. And you weren't wrong about me. That evening, a gathering was held outside the fortress. It was not a council meeting, nor a war ceremony. It was something new. A celebration of survival and a signal of change. Jetta stood beside Mira as both Earth and Varkari leaders stepped forward. For generations, our people saw only enemies, Jetta said. But today, we saw something else, honor and unity. Mira added, we still have a long way to go. But today, we took one more step together. Varkari guards raised their staffs. Earth soldiers raised their flags, and the stars above shone brighter than ever before. The twin suns rose slowly over Raisin 5, casting long shadows across the valley. The Varkari fortress stood tall, proud as ever, but something deep inside it had changed. For the first time in living memory, Varkari and humans walked its halls side by side. Varkari guards no longer stared with suspicion. Earth soldiers no longer kept their hands on their weapons. There were quiet nods between species, and careful greetings exchanged. Trust was still new, but it had begun. And at the center of it all was Mira, the one who had risked everything to make peace real. Inside the high chamber, a new council meeting was being prepared. But this time, The meeting was not only for Varkari leaders, human officials, including Ambassador Luan, were also present. A new table had been carved from black stone and silver metal. It was round without a head so no one sat above the rest, a symbol of balance. Mira stood quietly as workers prepared the room. She looked up at the high windows where the light touched the walls carved with stories of old wars. Soon, these walls would tell new stories. Jeddah entered, her armor polished, her posture calm and proud. "They're ready," she said. Mira turned. "I still can't believe we made it this far." Jeddah gave a small smile. "Neither can some of my own council. But that is how all great changes begin, with disbelief." Mira nodded. "And trust." The meeting began with silence. Both sides sat at the table. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the soft hum of energy lights filled the room. Then Jeddah stood. "We are not here to forget the past," she said, "but to shape the future. This treaty is not a gift, it is a responsibility for both of us." She placed a thick, black metal plate on the table. The new peace accord, written in both Varkari and Earth symbols. Ambassador Luan stood next. "We came here with hope. That hope was nearly destroyed, but it was saved by two who chose courage over fear." He looked at Jeddah and Mira. "Mira, step forward last. Peace is not easy," she said, "and it is never perfect. There will still be mistakes, still be disagreements, but this treaty is a start. A promise to talk before we strike, to think before we fear, and to listen truly. Listen before we judge." She paused and added, "Let this be the day we stop being enemies and became neighbors." Slowly, one by one, hands reached forward. Varkari leaders pressed their marks onto the plate. So did the humans. The peace accord was sealed. Cheers did not fill the chamber. That was not the Varkari way, but Mira saw it in their eyes, the quiet pride, the cautious hope. Outside, the people of Raisin 5 gathered in the lower court. Varkari workers, Earth engineers, young trainees from both species. They watched as Mira and Jeddah stepped onto the high balcony together. Jeddah raised her voice. "Today, we did not surrender. We chose strength, the strength to build." And this time, there was a response. Cheer not wild, but deep and strong rose from the people. In the days that followed, work began across the planet. New towers were built not as weapons, but as learning centers. Young Varkari students sat beside humans, learning about stars, languages, and science. Old battlefields were cleared and turned into open gardens. Mira stood in one such place. As children from both sides planted bright flowers in the dry soil, Jeddah watched from a distance. "They look like they've never seen war," she said. Mira smiled. "That's the goal." But peace still had its enemies. In the outer rim, a small group of Varkari rebels refused to accept the treaty. They stole supplies and spread fear. Some humans also doubted the alliance, afraid that one day the Varkari would betray them. Jeddah and Mira faced those problems together. Every time a crisis rose, they stood side by side, firm, clear, united. In one message sent to both Earth and Raisin councils. Jeddah wrote, "We do not follow peace because it is easy. We follow it because we are strong enough to try." Months later, a great gathering was held near the same spot where Mira had first arrived. A new structure had been built there, a place for joint meetings, research, and exchange. Its walls were made from stone and metal from both worlds. The building was called the Unity Hall. Inside it, a tall statue stood. It showed two figures, one human, one Varkari, both reaching toward the same star above them. Mira stood quietly before it, looking up. Jeddah joined her. "They made it look like you," Jeddah said, pointing at the human figure. Mira laughed softly. "They gave me more muscles." Jeddah raised an eyebrow. "They still made you too short." They both smiled. Then Mira grew serious. "Do you ever think about the first time we met?" Jeddah nodded slowly. "Yes. I almost crushed your neck. You said, I could rip you apart, human. But tonight you will listen." Jeddah turned toward her. "And you did listen. But more importantly, you made me listen, too." Mira looked at her. "So now, what comes next?" Jeddah pointed toward the stars. Now we explore together. That evening, a new ship left the surface of Raisin 5. It was co-built by humans and Varkari. Its name was the Dawnfire. Aboard it were explorers, scientists, and peacekeepers half human, half Varkari. Their mission, to find new worlds, new friends, and to show the galaxy what the former enemies could build together. Mira watched the ship rise, its engines glowing like twin suns. Beside her, Jetta stood quietly, her arms folded, her eyes steady. They didn't need to speak. They both knew this was only the beginning. End of part 7.